Good morning, Cyber Warriors. Yesterday, we had our first Cyber Patriot practice for the Cyber Patriot 15 season, and it gave me an idea about a video, actually a pair of videos. And yes, some of you sharp-eyed readers will notice that I have a different office setup than my other videos. It has been a while, and I've shuffled a few things around. Moving on. Anyway, today, I'd like to go over the NETSTAT command and a couple of ways it can be used to find information on the system. First up, you will need an administrator command prompt and also your favorite text editor. I'm going to be using Notepad++ because of some special features that it has it. You may want to go ahead and download it for yourself if you do not already have it. Not absolutely necessary, it just makes things a lot easier in the back end. I will show you how and why. But go ahead and pause the video while you get those up and running. Okay, now that we have those running, let's take a look at the command prompt and NETSTAT. So let's go, boom. Here we have an administrator command prompt. You'll notice it says administrator in the corner. I'm going to click into there and NETSTAT, all one word. NETSTAT collects a whole bunch of information about your local system and the remote system that it's connected to across the network. It pulls in your port information, your addresses, whether it's the source or destination, or in this case, it calls it local and foreign. Also has the state of that command, the connection, whether it is closed, if it's established, if it's listening, or other different possible things. Now, you'll notice it's taken a long time to get a lot of this stuff done. I'm going to go ahead and kill it, and we're going to find ways to make this a bit more efficient to use and a little more friendly, which will provide some additional information which you will find extremely useful. Now, in order to pull up the information, we're going to have to do what? Pull up the help file, right? So do you remember how to do and bring up a help file in command prompt? Well, a couple different ways, but the easiest way is a / question mark. And it pulls up the basic information. It shows the formatting for the different arguments that we want to give to it. Arguments are the different commands to change and shape the way that it provides information to us. So there are 4 different things we're going to talk about today. -A. -A displays all the connections and the listening ports. This includes everything. -B displays the executable associated with that connection. This allows us to see what program is running, which is governing that particular process and connection. -N displays the addresses and ports in numerical form, which prevents the DNS lookups, which take a long time, and it speeds up things considerably. Now, the reason why we want to do this is because some of these things, like this, sometimes a domain name can have multiple different IP addresses, and we want to know specifically which IP address, which is less important than a domain name. You can always run a DNS search afterwards. It also automatically translates the port information, and sometimes that's useful, sometimes not so much. For example, if your system is geared to call 8000 or 8080 or 8009 HTTP, which it can do, you don't know which particular port we're talking about. So it just is helpful to have the numerical values so you can identify very quickly what port it is. And if you know what they are, if you're not familiar that 80 and 8000 and 8080 are common used ports for HTTP, that's something you can learn. 443 is HTTPS, the encrypted form. So that's just one of the things we want to do, make sure that it shows all of that in the number form as opposed to the DNS resolved or the port resolve as well. And the last one, number 4, is -O, which displays the owning process ID or PID. And so these are all, boom, in here, and you can look at all of this stuff, but we're going to put it together in a single argument, and it was a -ABNO. Now it provides a whole lot of information, to include the information about the application that's running it. But you notice a problem with the way this is formatted. That line is actually on a separate line, so it's difficult for you to be able to pull that information. If I wanted to look up router application specifically and find out all of the different ports it's associated with, we take our command, hitting the up arrow, and then doing a space and a pipe. We're going to do find, and we're going to put that information. We're going to paste it. Now, there are two ways to paste into command prompt. One is right-click with your mouse, and the other is to go up to this corner. We hit that corner, we go down to edit, and we can paste the information there. I find it a lot easier just to use the mouse clicks. So we're going to run the command, and there's a bucket load of results, but nothing else with it, and it doesn't help. Even find string, which is a more robust version of find in the command prompt, doesn't allow you to do a search for the line above like you would see in grep. Grep allows you to do that all the time. It's very useful. I use it a lot that way. Unfortunately, the command prompt is not nearly that cool. So we have to do something with it. Now, what we can do with it is we can actually push all of that information into our clipboard, which allows us to paste it into our text editor. So we're going to go into our text editor now, and we're going to paste it. We see all of that stuff, to include all of these things, on the wrong line. I like to go to the top because I like going to the top. You'll notice that there's different line numbers for all of these things, right? Each one of these is a different line. For sure, there's no question about it. So what we want to do is we want to change that, and we want to change it in a way that is repeatable and easy for us to do. Now, if we're using a program like Notepad++, we can actually create a macro to do it for us, especially if we're going to do this as part of an ongoing thing. You're going to be doing Cyber Patriot competitions over and over and over. You're going to be doing these investigations on these systems on a regular, recurring basis. Notepad++ is portable, and you can actually put in your shortcut key or your macro keys into that, and you can export it and import it into the new systems. Makes it a lot easier, saves you a ton of time, and you don't have to do all of these steps over and over and over again. Because, I mean, otherwise, your option is to go in and delete and over and over and over again, and it's a pain. You don't want to do that, right? Why do a repetitive task repetitively when a computer's entire purpose is to do a repetitive task repetitively? Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to teach the Notepad++ how to do this repeatedly and how to be able to do it. Right? So we're going to go up and we're going to record the macro. We're going to start recording. And now we're going to open up the find and replace, which is the Control H key. And we want to make sure that our search mode allows for extended, which is special characters which you can't necessarily see. These are things like new lines, return characters, tabs, things of that nature, which are generally not obvious to us, but exist in the system so that we can actually use them. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get rid of the returns. So we're going to do that. We're going to make sure there's nothing we're replacing it with. So we're going to take a return character and replace it with nothing. So I'm going to go over here to replace all. And you see that 414 occurrences. But it didn't do anything. You notice it didn't actually change any of our line numbers. We want our line numbers to change. So weirdly enough, you have to do this twice in order to do it. And so now you see 414 characters again. We're done there, right? So now that we're done with that, we have to turn this back into multiple lines, because right now you'll see the entire thing is now all on one line. It's all wrapped, but it's all one line. So it's not useful for us in any programmable means. So now we have to go back in and put those carriage returns in there. So to do that, we know that the lines we want to work with start with TCP and UDP. You may not necessarily know that, but understand that is what is there, right? So first we're going to do TCP, and we're going to add those new lines back in with TCP again, right? So now adding a /n, which is the new line, and then TCP. I have it without a space because otherwise it would add a space. We don't necessarily want one. So I'm going to replace all, and you'll see now they're all in different lines on the document. It makes it easy. So we have TCP done. Now we need to do UDP. We're going to do the same thing with find and replace, 41. We go back down here, and it's all a lot easier to see. This allows us to go ahead and we can scroll through and we can take a look at all this stuff. But scrolling through is difficult. You can't necessarily see everything you want to look at. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this and then pull it back up in a DOS prompt. Right? So we're going to go in here, go for save, and this is the folder I like to use, and that's the file name I like to use. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the existing one. And now I'm going to go into my Cyber Patriot folder here. Move it on the screen so we can see. And you click on the address bar and you type in CMD. The reason why you do that is because you want to open up a brand new DOS prompt, and it automatically opens it up in the same directory that you were just in when you do that. So now you just do a directory command. You see I have two results, one of which is the text file we just opened. Now we can open up the text file, and I recommend going through it at least once through the command prompt to kind of get an idea of things that you want to look for. Once you have something you don't know what it is, stop and let's look it up. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to type in more and then our command. Remember, tabbed autocomplete is your friend. Less typing. So more allows us to open up one page worth of information at a time, or we can step through the information one line at a time. To go one line, you press the enter key, and you'll see that it advances one line at a time. To go an entire page, you hit the space bar. So what we're going to do is we're going to space this a few times. We're going to take a look at some of these things. All right, so we know what some of these are. We should understand what some of these are. Let's go to something that's kind of weird looking. And weird looking, let's do this, right? So VidiUI.exe, let's take a look at that. In order to get out of more, and you'll see that there is still more to go, it gives you a percentage of how far through your file you are. You just hit Q to quit. So now what we want to do, instead of typing more, we're going to type the word type, which is extraordinarily redundant, but that's how they program it. Again, tab to autocomplete. Now we're going to do a space, pipe, and find that file name or executable name to find out how many there are. So, all right, so there's one there. Let's take a look at Chrome. There's a handful for Chrome. These are different ways you can actually search for that information. It makes it easier for you to be able to go and identify everything that's associated with that. If you're looking for like TeamViewer, which is something that we have to look for on a regular basis with the stuff that we're doing, as long as you have the executable name or the name of the process, you can go back and find it through this file, and it gives you all of the ports that are associated with it. You have to remember the first group here is your local address. This is my local address. This is my local port. Here is my foreign address, which is the remote one, and the foreign or remote port. And it just makes it easy to remember that the first is always local, second is always remote. And we have, these are established. These are the different process IDs, and you'll see that there's 2 different process IDs. This one is sneaking down. It's all the same as this up here, though. So there's multiple process IDs, and it's important for us to know, especially if it's asking for all of the process IDs, the PIDs associated with that. Other things you want to search for and identify are, you want to look for things that are listening or established. Listen, boom. Wait a minute. There should be a result. Let's look at established. Why didn't it find anything? Do you know? You have an idea? Thumbs up on the video if you know what it is. Because I didn't tell it to be case sensitive, right? So case insensitive. By default, grep and find are the only thing they really have in common, other than the fact that they do text searching, is they're case sensitive automatically. You have to tell it to be case insensitive. So running that same command, I now have tons of results. So looking at this, there's a few things that I don't necessarily want to see, right? So I know what razor is. I know what that is. So I want to go ahead and exclude that. This is also known as whitelisting. And we do a /v, which means to find the opposite of. I'm going to do a razor. But I'm going to do it with capital R because I'm too lazy to go back and do a case insensitive. You notice all of those razor results are gone. And I'm going to go again, V, and we're going to look for ownership and exclude those results because we don't need to see those either. Other commands you want to do for sure is not just the established, but listening. Because listening are for ports that are like command and control sorts of things or remote control items. Those all will be listening. So it's important to know and understand what's listening. And for example, this is the port 139 for our local host. And this is actually, happen to know this is NetBIOS. Even though it tells me that it cannot obtain the ownership information. The ownership is actually system, but you don't see it as system here within NetStat, and it is a limitation of the command prompt itself. That information is available in PowerShell. It's just one of the quirks of the system. That's how that works. But here we have a lot of this really good information, which allows you to filter and whitelist and include, exclude information, and change the shape of it, if you will, right? Did I forget to turn this off? Yeah, I forgot to stop recording on this. All right, so we stopped the recording of it. We have to go ahead and name it. So that's saved the current recorded macro. We're going to give it a name. NetStat Fixer. So the next time we want to bring this up, let's run this command again. Boom, it's there. You see it's all messed up again. Go up here to macro, NetStat Fixer, and magic. It's all fixed again. So in order to find this, to export it, you want to actually go into your APPDATA roaming folder. And you do that by slow to get from one screen to the other. Do %AppData and return. And it'll automatically push you into this entire file structure, which is under the users, the individual user you're in, your data, your AppData roaming, and then you go into Notepad++, and you want to copy shortcuts.xml. This has your macro in there. It looks ugly compared to the beautiful macros that they built, but it doesn't matter because it will do the function whether it's on this system or another. Make sure you copy this off and you bring it with you with your scripts and other things you're going to be using on the file. It makes it a lot easier to fix the formatting. And you may have other formatting things that you want to fix based off of the information how you write your scripts. You should be writing scripts. Anyway, that's all that I have for this particular video. I hope that it was informative. Good luck and happy hunting there, Cyber Warriors.